The Sergeant Who Didn't Shoot. How a Luftwaffe pilot became America's secret weapon. The Daimler-Benz engine is screaming, not running, screaming, like something alive that knows it's dying. Hans Verer Lurch can smell it before he sees it. The acrid, sweet stench of glycol coolant mixing with hydraulic fluid, two substances that should never meet. The instrument panel of his Messerschmitt is a constellation of red warning lights. Altitude is 4,200 meters. Airspeed is dropping. Oil pressure is 0. He has perhaps 90 seconds before the engine seizes completely or the fire reaches the fuel tanks. The Rhine Valley spreads below him like a crumpled map. Patchwork fields, the silver thread of the river, and somewhere down there, American soldiers who will either save him or kill him. The choice isn't really his. Hans pulls the canopy release. The wind hits him like a physical blow. 200 kilometers per hour of frozen March air steals his breath and tears at his flight suit. He disconnects the oxygen line, the radio lead, the harness. Below him, the fighter begins its death spiral, trailing black smoke like a funeral shroud. Then he jumps. The parachute opens with a crack that rattles his teeth. Silence follows. The terrible, beautiful silence of a man falling toward his fate. In that silence, Hans Verer Lurch, holder of the Iron Cross, veteran of 450 combat sorties, chief test pilot for Germany's most advanced fighters, remembers the stories whispered in ready rooms and barracks. Stories of Americans torturing captured pilots, beating them until they talked, shooting them anyway. Stories sworn true by SS officers who promised the Allies showed no mercy. The ground rises fast now. Trees, a farmhouse, a dirt road. Figures appear, first small, then unmistakable. Men in olive drab uniforms running toward where he will land. Americans. He hits the ground hard, rolls and tangles in parachute silk. Pain explodes in his ankle. The figures close in. 30 meters. 20. He can see their faces. Hans closes his eyes and waits for the rifle shot. It doesn't come. Instead, a voice, young, almost bored. "You speak English, Fritz?" Hans opens his eyes. The American sergeant standing over him can't be more than 22. Freckles, a rifle pointed at the ground, not at his head. 3 more soldiers stand behind him, weapons lowered. "Yes," Hans manages. "Some English." The sergeant nods, reaches into his pocket, pulls out a pack of Lucky Strikes, and offers one. "Rough landing," he says, lighting the cigarette. "You okay? You're bleeding." Hans touches his forehead. His glove comes away, red. He stares at the American cigarette, sweeter than the harsh tobacco he knows, and feels the first crack form in everything he believed about this war. The hospital smells like antiseptic and real coffee. Hans lies in a bed with white sheets, actually white, clean, crisp. A medic wraps his ankle and tells him it's only sprained. Lucky. The medic speaks German. His name tag says Kowalski. He explains that his grandparents came from Germany. He offers more morphine. Hans refuses. Through the window, Hans sees German prisoners being registered, photographed, and fed. One eats from a tin can with desperate focus. American food. They are feeding the prisoners.
How are you feeling
The
today?
warnings he was
A little
given
better,
sound
sir.
absurd
Your
now.
report shows progress.
The Americans
Thank you.
were supposed to
I'm
be
trying.
savages. Instead, he lies in a clean bed, cared for, treated like a human being. A major enters. He speaks flawless German and knows Hans's name, his career, his aircraft. He shows photographs. Hans beside experimental planes, shaking hands with designers, climbing into prototypes. The major explains the truth. The war is over. Germany has lost. The only question is what comes next. The Americans have captured dozens of German jet fighters, revolutionary machines, and they don't know how to fly. Them. Hans is given a choice, a prisoner of war camp for years, or cooperation, teaching American pilots, explaining the aircraft, relocating to the United States when the war ends. Hans asks why they would trust him. The major answers simply, "Pilots understand pilots." The next day, Hans is offered something impossible. He's allowed to fly an American fighter alone. No guard, no restraints. The Mustang sits on the tarmac, polished aluminum shining in the sun. Hans walks around it, studying every detail. The cockpit is spacious, logical. Everything makes sense. He takes off. At altitude over the Rhine Valley, Hans finally understands why Germany lost the war. Not courage, not technology, industry. The Mustang is flawless, stable, reliable, built not as a miracle, but as a product, one of thousands, refined through repetition. America built 15,000 of them. Germany built dreams it couldn't sustain. Hans lands, shuts down the engine, and climbs out. When asked for his decision, he answers without hesitation. Weeks later, Hans stands beside captured German jets, explaining their flaws to American pilots. They share stories, cigarettes, photographs of wives and children. Hans shows a picture of his wife and daughter. They are no longer enemies. They are pilots. Years later, Hans Verer Lurch dies in California, surrounded by children and grandchildren who exist because one American sergeant chose mercy instead of vengeance. He spent decades flying, teaching, shaping the future of aviation. When asked what he remembered most about the war, he spoke not of combat, but of kindness. A cigarette, clean sheets, humanity. One small act that rippled through generations. The bullets not fired mattered just as much as the ones that were. That is the paradox of peace. And it is a lesson worth remembering.